to Tromsø, which is just across. And there's the caravan, the peloton, in a beautiful summer setting in the Arctic Circle. Still 4 minutes, the gap between the two groups on the road. And today's finish isn't very high at all. It's only 270 meters above sea level. It's a hill, really, rather than a mountain. But we did start in the mountains. We started in the Lyngen Alps, area that has just 3,000 inhabitants. The name Lyngen to the fjord Lyngen. That comes from the word long, meaning quiet or, as you can see here, very quiet, very calm indeed. And the sun just adds to the spectacular nature of these images. And if you're on social media, you'll have seen the Instagram posts and stories this morning, the Twitter photographs of everybody joining and getting on the speedboat transfer over to the start. .78 kilometers to go. 3 minutes and 49 is the gap. Bit of wind about as well today.
Yeah, it's picked up a little bit. It's about 12, 13 kilometers now, but certainly a few more gusts higher than that, just looking at the state of the trees, the leaves there. But the riders have had a bit of a nagging headwind for the first part of the stage. They're now midway through the course. They've gone past the feed zone. And for the next 10 or 15 kilometres, they will still have that wind coming in from the left-hand side before they get the wind in their backs, but they'll be very, very thankful for. Still 2 hotspot sprints to go. The first of the hotspot sprints was actually taken by Corsair. One yesterday. Had the finish line been on that particular occasion,
he
won the penultimate lap. But as you say earlier on, he did get the Viking jersey because he was pretty aggressive in that last lap. A little bit of a consolation prize for that rather embarrassing mistake. But he took the first hotspot sprint. Hofstetter took second, and Delfoss chipped away. He was 19 seconds down on the overall classification. He now has moved himself up and is now 18 seconds down.
I think we need to start compiling these incidents where people think they've won, because they're becoming quite common at the moment. The last couple of years there seem to have been 3 or 4 different ones. Remember Roma Maxima when Pipo Bozzato thought he'd won, and I think it was Blel Kadri when ago. We had Luca Pibernik this year as well at the Giro d'Italia. There have been countless instances, and I think cataloging them and maybe awarding a Eurosport prize for it, because it certainly brightens up our day.
It certainly does, because the producer always gives us a nice slow motion replay as well, just to kind of add to the kind of the embarrassment. A couple of years back I was commentating on the Tour of California, and there was an instance there, one of the Spanish riders from one of the Americans to go and put his arms up. It took him a while to in fact won, and of course famously last year in the World Junior Cyclocross Championships with 1 lap to go, the lad thought he'd won. Can't remember the name of the lad, but he managed to fight back and actually still managed to get a silver medal, so fair play to him on that occasion.
Peloton are heading up towards the summit of the King of the Mountains. They do that with a delay of 4 minutes and 8 seconds. BMC, as usual, just keeping their powder dry here, and we mentioned the strength, or perhaps perceived lack of strength. Certainly they're not as strong in numbers as other teams. They only have 5 riders here. That's 4 plus their leader, and they'll be wanting to keep their riders safe and ready for the final climb. And from here on in, it's fairly flat, isn't it? It's relatively flat towards the final climb. We're heading along the coast all of the way, crossing onto another island, the island of Kvaløya. And then after that, it's just one big climb, 5 kilometers uphill to the line. Are we going to see a big drag race to catch this breakaway? Are we going to see different teams working, or people just sitting off and waiting until we get to the bottom of that climb?
It's quite an interesting stage. I mean, we've got this is actually a really strong breakaway, a real good composition, although there's no pure climbers in that break. When you look at the climb itself, of course, the final climb to the line, it's 5.2 kilometres in length, but only 4.9% average gradient. And the first kilometre of the climb is only 0.5 of a percentage, and then, 5%, then 4%. There's 2 quite considerable sections of flat within the climb. It's the midsection that's quite difficult, averages between 7 and 6% before flattening out for another kilometre, then kicking up. It's not particularly difficult beyond a very good road surface, as we understand. There'll be a side wind for the climb, and I think we may get a considerable, we may get a group of about 25-30 riders going to the finish on that particular climb. And I think a lot of the teams are just going to leave it to BMC, and I have a feeling this group might actually hold on to the bottom of the climb, and I think they've got a pretty good chance. Although the gap has now dropped, this is this last little kick up of the day. We've obviously gone up over the King of the Mountains climb. They've dropped down, kicked up. After this little lip, it'll drop down. Then, as you said, Rob, it's completely flat to the foot of the final climb.
Fans all over the roadside. It's the weekend. You get the extra fans out there. A lot of people take long summer holidays at this time of the year anyway in Norway to take advantage of the sunny weather and the long days. Everyone gets out on the boats. There's barbecues and a real party atmosphere all over the country in summer. Of course, midsummer is a big festival all through Scandinavia, never mind just in Norway, over the border in Sweden. Big party. And a reminder that we'll be broadcasting the race from Sweden tomorrow morning. The Vårgårda Women's World Tour race will be live at 9:30 in the morning. So 75 kilometres to go. BMC with Floris Hertz. Still been working at the front. Amel Moinal just a little further down the row of riders you can see. Monty Gobert have Johan Alfredo up there as well, and it's time for a little bit of an oil up for Bernie Eisel.
Yeah, definitely. It's in these sorts of wet and dry conditions, just looking back earlier on in the stage, it was absolutely pouring down with rain. And generally speaking, there'll be only a very light application of lubricant on the chains, which should see you through quite easily and satisfactorily through a dry stage. But if you get a lot of wet on the chain, the chain starts to get very dry and starts to squeak. And it's not only the annoying noise, it actually becomes mechanically inefficient because the added friction. So, you know, riders these days and teams, manufacturers, all thinking about saving watts, whether it's through aerodynamics, whether it's the efficiency of hubs, whether it's the efficiency of bottom brackets, chains. So important that you get it lubricated because as well as wearing the chain out and sounding annoying, you can actually lose sort of 5-10 watts.
I was going to say, can we put a figure on that?
You can. I mean, manufacturers will differ, that there are particular varieties of chain lubricant that claim that they can actually save you watts. A lot of riders and a lot of teams now have a larger cage at the rear mech to add efficiency to the jockey wheels. So the longer chain line apparently adds a little bit of efficiency. So it will definitely save you a couple of watts because you can hear the friction. That is the noise. That's the sound is basically metal upon metal. So important that they get the chain lubed. Believe you me, in a breakaway with somebody with a squeaky chain, it's actually more annoying than anything else.
They'd be trying to drop him because he's unpopular, not because they think he's weak or they want to stop him competing with them. Well, one man that everyone's keeping an eye on in that sort of black and I think it's luminous yellow stroke green jersey for WB Varan Classic Equality Project. This is for the most let's say aesthetic looking jersey, the team from Belgium, but they have Sebastian Delfosse there, who's 19 seconds in the overall, and as you say today, I think there will be a little bit of pressure here on BMC Racing because they're the ones having to keep this in check. It's their jersey that's on the line, and if there were to be a bit of a mistake, it's only 5 kilometres long, this final climb. It's not the hardest climb they've ever seen. Just imagine if there was a miscalculation made. Delfosse got up the road. He takes some bonus seconds on the line as well. He's suddenly in the shout for the overall. Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, you've got Floris Hertz doing a really good job at the moment, allied with Danilo Wies. So we'll see. But yeah, this gap is for BMC, and I don't think, looking at the climb again, we talked about the composition, the makeup of the climb, you're not going to lose a hatful of time on that particular climb, a minute and a half perhaps.
73 kilometres still to go. It's a sunny day in the Arctic Circle. Fontenay-Oscaro, Cofidis, both French teams with riders in the break. Same can be said of Team Co-op. There's Ola Andre Ostervold, 5 minutes 27 seconds down, no danger to the overall lead of Dylan Teuns. And there's the Norwegian champion, Number 46 on his back. Still only 21 years of age, pardon me, Rasmus Fossum Diller. Big surprise. He stars of Norwegian cycling, of course. Edvard Boasson-Hagen, who's won the championship a lot, both on the roll and the time trial. Alexander Kristoff as well as racing that day. Those guys finished in groups in that race that were minutes and minutes and minutes down. It was a huge win for Rasmus Fossum Diller, and as we said, there's that anomaly, that peculiarity of his win we talked about earlier on in the week in the national championship, where he couldn't win the under-23 category, but he destroyed everybody else in the seniors category.
Well, the Joker team as a whole, I mean, there's some real good talent coming through. We talked about it the other day at length. Norway breeding some fantastic young riders, and Joker traditionally over the last few years has been a really important feeder team for Norwegian talent coming through to the World Tour. So just, I mean, you just look at them, the composition of the Joker team at the moment. You've got Christopher Halvorsen, former under-23 road champion of the world. Then you've got 3 riders, all within 13 seconds as well. You've got Hagen, 13th at 13 seconds. Holgaard, who's the best, wearing the white jersey at the moment of best young rider, although the actual wearer of the real wearer of the jersey, of course, is Dylan Teuns. Then you've got Bjorn Tore Hoem, 9th at 13 seconds as well. And then you've got the national road champion, who's actually 55th at 1:54. They're really packing their riders up at the top, and expect a few fireworks on those riders on the finishing climb today. But of course, this race, along with the Tour of Norway, along with the Tour of the Fjords, there are the 3 big races that the Norwegian team focus on, and they really do manage to raise their game. It's an impressive riding by the Joker Ecopal team in particular.
Aqua Blue. They come out without Lars Petter Nordhaug, who I think the organisers would have been desperate to attend to try and have a go at winning this. But they have a guy who's up there in 5th place overall and is moving up every day. Michel Kreder at 11 seconds now, and that explains the reason why Matthew Bramier has started to do a little bit of riding at the front.
Yeah, Irvine and Bramier just putting the shoulders in the wind a little bit, unsurprisingly there. I think there's only so long that you can actually... This is the brinkmanship you get in stage races. It's like making sure that the team of the race leader do the work, because you're obligated, of course, to do that. You're obliged to do that. But also, if you let them work too hard, you're actually taking yourself potentially out of the game as well. So with the gap at 3 minutes and 19 seconds, I think we're seeing the other teams just showing a little bit of willingness to assist in the pace making, just in case, as you mentioned before, Rob, they don't do that there's no kind of miscalculation. Because often if all the other teams sit back, and with such small teams, BMC, I think with the strength of this breakaway, I think it might be a little bit hard to bring it back before the climbs, to be perfectly honest with you, because when you look at the breakaway, Petit, Crosset, Valet, Hofstetter, and Delfosse in particular, they are really respectable riders. And as the course swings round in the next 10 or 15 Ks, it swings round to the right. That's when this breakaway will pick up a tailwind as well. And then, although it's not going to swing exactly into their advantage, it's far more beneficial for a breakaway to have a tailwind on the run into the line. So, yeah, it's all about, as Sean Kelly says, the calculations today. That is why we're seeing Joker and also the Aqua Blue squad assisting at the front.
Irvine lending his hand, pardon me, to the chase. Towards the back, Tuti, former Rwandan national champion. I mentioned they had their man in the break today. Bernie Eisel. They also have their stagiaire, Gebre Isgabir. And I hope I'm going to turn professional. At least someone, hopefully, will help us out. He's doing really well. He's had a fantastic ride, 18th overall, 19 seconds away from the lead of Dylan Teuns. So it's been a good week for Team Dimension Data. Heading towards Tromsø today. Tromsø hosts the finish weekend of the race. Both stages based around Tromsø, and it's quite a unique place, actually. One of the most extraordinary places in the world, you'd say. It's only 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. It's the last big city outpost before you get to the deep Arctic, if you like. But there's quite mild weather up here. Certainly in the summer, there's a lot of Gulf Stream current that comes from subtropical places in the sea. So you see a city in bloom, really. There's flowers, there's grass, there's because of the very, very long days in the summer. You can go hiking in the morning and stay out till midnight.
No, it's yeah, the land of the midnight sun.
We're off for a quick commercial break then. 69 kilometres to go. 3 minutes 13 the gap for the 8 riders in the break.
Blow the roof off with the Full House bundle from Virgin Media. Get the Sky channels you love and must-see series on demand. Watch every live UEFA Champions League game and massive Premier League battles from BT Sport. Plus, record 6 shows at once with our Virgin TV V6 box and go ultra-fast with Virgin Fibre. The Full House bundle. Just £55 a month for 12 months and a £20 activation fee. Search Virgin Media Bundles.
Here at Enterprise, we have a huge range of cars, vans and luxury models.
So no matter what you confusing Brits do on the weekend, we've got a vehicle for you. Have a nice trip.
Cheers!
I just rented a van to a chicken. As we say in the U.S., the customer is always right.
So whatever vehicle you need, we've got it. It's UK Car Hire.
With U.S. customer service.
Lexus LC. Experience amazing.
Are the most competitive brothers in the world. Mr. Brownlee could have beaten his brother on these sumptuous Aldi barbecue favourites by shopping for brands at the big 4 supermarkets. He would, but he couldn't. So now he's getting his own back by selling Johnny's medals for peanuts. Swap and win gold with Aldi's amazing summer.
A few days ago, Nick had back pain. He struggled to bend, jump. Believe it! What happened?
Voltarol provides up to 3 times more effective pain relief than non-medicated gel. The triple effect of Voltarol relieves pain at source, reduces inflammation, helps speed up recovery. Voltarol, the joy of movement.
Being diagnosed with a serious illness like cancer can bring financial worries. That's why at Lloyds Bank, we have staff trained by Macmillan Cancer Support to help manage your finances, so you can get on with life. Lloyds Bank, by your side.
It's a lovely day today, so whatever you've got to do, you got a lovely day to do it in, that's true. And I hope whatever you've got to do, something that can be done by 2, for I'd really like to stay. It's a lovely day.
.66 kilometres still to go. 3 minutes and 7 now for the 8-man breakaway. Blue jersey on the back still of Dylan Teuns, the Belgian, and what a 3 weeks it's been for him. The discovery of a talent who promised quite a lot in the last few years, but who hadn't fulfilled. Of course, you could say, OK, he's been at a team like BMC Racing, where opportunities are pretty scarce. But I'll tell you what, if his contract is, I think, nothing, Matt.
Yeah, I think depending on who his agent is, or if he hasn't got one, he needs to get one straight away, because no, he's hot property. He's always shown that potential since he rode as a stagiaire. I remember him riding as a stagiaire, I think it was 2014, in fact, over at the Tour of Britain. And then some of the tougher stages there, he had a few top 5s, top 10s placings, and just showed us quiet. I think 2016 was one of his quieter years. Rode well in 2015. For example, 4th overall in the Tour of Belgium there. But as you said, it's this year he's really come to the fore. First off with that podium place, 3rd spot in Flèche Wallonne. and straight away that's an indicator of real talent. But then with 6 wins in the last few weeks is mightily impressive, and it's just it's the style that he's done it with as well. It reminds me of Philippe Gilbert and Greg Van Avermaet in their pomp. No, a mightily impressive rider who's also riding with a lot of confidence as well, and also with remarkable intelligence. Just his timing the other day to take that stage, he didn't certainly expect to win that stage, but just the way he rode, the way he placed himself in the peloton on a very tricky and technical finale, which saw quite a few top quality riders come to grief through error, bike handling. He's got bike handling skills, he's got the nous to ride in the right places, but most importantly he's got that devastating high-end turn of speed, which also reminds me a little bit of the way Dan Martin can ride, you know, very, very high power for a long kind of period of time. He's got this kind of ability to ride 20, 30, 40 seconds at the kind of power that most riders just cannot deliver. He's only 64 kilograms, remember, and put 2 seconds into a class field the other day. But he is going to be the man to beat today. He's got a solid team around him, but a small team in terms of number, but a team that are willing, and they'll certainly do what they can to him. But I think midway through the climb, I expect actually to see, I would imagine that Amir Moynard will be there, and Danilo Visa they'll stay with him, because when you look at the rest of the field, they're riders that on their day could actually win this race as well. So they're very, very good climbers. The gradient isn't particularly steep, so I think they're the 2 riders that will stay with him as long as they can. But I have a feeling he might wait until right at the top to try and attack, because you've got this section with about 2 or 3 kilometers to go, which is pan flat, and I think because of the lack of steepness on the climb, I think it could be relatively open until the final K.
Well, that's what's to come. The final 5.2 kilometers of this stage, uphill, the uphill finish of the stage. Tomorrow, though, the stage into Tromsø, things can change still there. There are lumps and bumps, and you remember that we saw a similar stage, I think 3 years ago now, when it was the Norwegian star Tor Hushovd who was retiring. Tromsø to Tromsø, laps and climbs towards the end, and a second category climb that's to be taken on several times once we get back to Tromsø.
7 times, in fact, so it's a tough, it's only a short climb, the Rotsbakken, only 84 meters, but it was like a little mini world championships around there, and that is the sort of terrain that is going to suit Dylan Teuns down to the ground. But because of the nature of that sort of course, if other teams like Astana, for example, or Katusha, if they go on the attack, what they'll try and do is isolate Dylan Teuns. So he needs to take a few more seconds of he's on a narrow margin of the GC at the moment. He's going to want to extend that tomorrow, because on stage 1 in his post-race interview, the interviewer said, you know, do you think you've got this race sewn up? He said, no, this is a very tough race. It's going to come down perhaps to bonus seconds as well. So Teuns, I think, will definitely go on the offensive today, but he has to be very wary tomorrow. There's a risk of him getting isolated, and that's what he cannot afford to do.
There's the church of Malangen, 1853. It was the first church in this whole municipality. Just to get back onto the bonus seconds you mentioned a moment ago. Alexander Kristoff's now third at 3 seconds. A lot will depend on how he goes on today's climb, because it's the sort of climb where he could hang on for quite a while, depending on the pace set at the front, depending on what his team does, depending on how they look after him. And if you think back to Tor Hushovd's big goodbye a few years ago in Tromsø, guess who ruined it for him?
I remember commentating up on it. I think, do you remember Hushovd went clear on the final, on one of the final laps, and within the last 800 meters it was Kristoff who brought quite a few riders back and
won the stage.
Yeah, and won the stage. I mean, obviously we weren't suggesting that the race was rigged at all, and or anything. I think it just would have been nice to honour Tor Hushovd, and he wasn't particularly happy at the finish after, because back then, a couple of years back, I suppose Alexander Kristoff was the rider on the ascendancy, wasn't he, in terms of his results. He was almost like the young upstart, and I remember that Hushovd wasn't particularly happy with that.
Kristoff wasn't the most popular.
He wasn't.
But just suppose that he hung on here today. Dylan Teuns didn't get away, and somebody else took the bonus seconds away. There's a few intermediate sprints as well tomorrow, 3 of them in fact. It'd be very, very interesting to see if Alexander Kristoff could win tomorrow's stage, take 10 bonus seconds. And of course, ready seconds today, give himself a chance of snatching the overall win. I mean, it's a big ask, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
It's a very big ask, but Christophe struggled through the Tour de France and has come back clearly. Although he struggled within the Tour de France, he's come out of the Tour de France in very, very good shape. And the last 4 races that he's done, last four starts he's done, he's won 3 of them. So he's got a 75% hit rate in the last 4 races since the end of the Tour de France, which is pretty impressive, although they're relatively flat courses. But the difficult finish we had on stage 1, he still managed to finish in seventh place. But yeah, it's I think Christophe could be there or thereabouts.
Well, we're just over 60 kilometres to go. 2 minutes and 53 seconds. We've been talking all sorts of permutations and bonus seconds and what might happen between today and tomorrow. 3 kilometres has been the average as we're heading up towards Tromsø, the big city in the Arctic Circle. But we're finishing just outside it today on the hill. Tromsø is quite a big town. In fact, 74,000 people live there. Big university. Industry and the fisheries industry, as almost every town is up here. And of course, in terms of tourism, you only need to look at that to see why they get a lot of visitors.
It's selling itself, really, isn't it? It's absolutely beautiful, especially with this sun that they've been blessed with today. A tough start, wind and rain battering the peloton, a headwind in fact for most of the start. They started in Lingenstedt, headed south, and they swung in a westerly direction, heading back up the coast, and now they're swinging round towards the finish in Vingvikdal. But now a bit of a loop today for the riders, and they go under a tunnel actually very soon. They were heading under a tunnel before the penultimate hotspot sprint of the day. But going back to what you were saying earlier on, Rob, about the hotspot sprints, there, and in terms of Alexander Christophe perhaps posing a threat to Dylan Teuns in this race. Of course, a lot will depend on how he performs on the climb today, but let's assume he only loses a few seconds on the climb today. The hotspot sprints are very, very evenly spread out tomorrow. There's one very early on, Panflat, only 21 kilometres in. Then there's one midway through the race, and there's only one on the finishing circuit. So we could assume that if they're all on the finishing circuit, they might be out of reach of Christophe. But the fact they're very early on, the fact he's by far the better sprinter, well, the best sprinter in the whole field, far better than Dylan Teuns in a straight line on the flat, of course.
And he's got one of the strongest teams.
And he's got one of the strongest teams. So it will be very, very interesting. That's assuming that Katusha are in that position. They'll, of course, have to control the race to make sure it stays together to deliver Alexander Christophe. There are so many different permutations, but they'll be tough. Christophe's in great form. Let's not rule him out just now.
Yeah, and I wonder how much they'll be thinking back to stage 1 and that puncture, of course, for Ein Tarame. The problem Stram had too. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, they've had a lot of bad luck, I think, Tarame. Yeah, a lot of what-ifs. And you've got to look at Tarame today. I mean, the other... Christophe could have maybe try and keep Bistrom with him on the climb. And I have a feeling that Tarame may be given just a little bit of freedom as well to try and take away the bonus seconds. So let's say the time gaps aren't big. Let's say Dylan Teuns manages to steal a few seconds. If Tarame goes with him, sits on him, takes the bonus at the finale, keeps things nice and tight. So fortunately for Katusha, they do have options in trying to neutralise a certain amount of the threat that Dylan Teuns poses. And with these added time bonus, as you said, tomorrow, it's still a very, very open race. But I think the pendulum is definitely in the favour of Dylan Teuns. He's strong, his finishes suits him down to the ground. But we have reinvigorated Alexander Christophe in the European Champions jersey, riding on home soil with a solid team around him, and the pressure's off as well. He won that stage yesterday. He said, that's the stage that I'm going to win. He's got it, so hey, he might as well go for broke and try and hang in as long as he can on the climb today. Time will tell.
Gap being much more well controlled, adding their power to the chase. In fact, within about 5 kilometres of them adding a man up there in Martin Irvine, the gap came down by almost a minute. It's now 3:05. It's been as high as about 4.5, 5 minutes at stages today. Yes, in the meantime, at the back is the sprinter Hugo Hofstetter. I think he's just his second year as a professional now, the Frenchman. 92, just in front of him, Ola Andre Osterwold. Still a young rider in the Team Corp Oosterhuis jersey. That's the white, blue and black there. The white with the green and blue on. Fortunéo Vital, I should say. Fortunéo Oscaro, pardon me.
I still say
Vital
Concept.
They're going to be a different team, or at least they're planned to be a different team next year under the orders of the former rider Jérôme Pinault, based in the Vendée. But this is still a Breton team, and they have their rider Boris Vallée there, the Belgian rider, formerly of Lotto Soudal. Second season now with Fortunéo as Vallée. Danny Diaz up there, the Argentine for Delco Marseille, the French team. Sébastien Delfosse is the Belgian for WB Varan Classic. Truls Corset, we saw him celebrating yesterday, and he's been given the social media prize, the Viking jersey to wear today, alongside Adrien Petit and Bernie Eisel. A lot of sprinters in the break today.
Yeah, a lot of very strong sprinters. Hofstetter, of course, was second yesterday. As you say, second year with Cofidis. Only 23 years of age, you know, and fought valiantly at sprint yesterday, but there was never really out. Once Michael Morkov released Alexander Christoph. Oh, look at a little bit of an argument at the back here.
Not coming through. We talked yesterday about his popularity in the first year in the peloton, Truls Corset, and we weren't being nasty, we weren't getting at him, but there's been quite an unusual amount of reports, just talking to riders over here, and reputation gets around, doesn't it? And talking in the spring, there was several times that you were talking to riders, just at classics, sometimes, just, God, have you heard about this new guy from Astana? He rates himself a bit, and he moves around, and I tell you what, there's nothing wrong with being confident, but he's not making life easy for himself in the peloton at the moment.
No, I mean, that situation there was classic. It's the stuff you get in thirds and juniors races, you know, but you do get it on the pro scene as well. It's when basically you've got a breakaway, and bear in mind here, we've got 8 riders in the break. Occasionally you'll get in a breakaway, when you've been away for a long time, you'll get a rider not contributing to the pacemaking. You might want to drop off the back, miss a couple of turns, which can actually have a dramatic effect in terms of your recovery. A couple of turns missed, then you drop back into the line and take your turn on the front. Alternatively, it's just because you're gassed, you're very tired. But I think there, it was just sheer brinkmanship. Adrien Petit and Corsair didn't want to go through either. So we call it taking a rider out of the back, and clearly there Adrien Petit wasn't particularly happy with Corsair for one reason or another, and would basically force Corsair to move in front. Eventually he did, but it is something that happens from time to time. It's part of the tactical brinkmanship in pro cycling, and for us commentators it can be quite amusing, but you do see, and it's not unheard of, for riders literally to take each other out of the back of the group. We've seen riders with a complete stalemate almost end up not in the breakaway. So it is, and we use the words in commentating in this sport, a game of poker. It literally is a game of poker. It's like, well, hold on a minute, how far am I going to let us drift off the back? It's like, which one is going to mentally crack? In the end, it was Corsair. So fair play to Adrien Petit, but Corsair, I don't know, he's not making himself too popular in the peloton, is he?
Is the boss of the peloton. He might have to have a word. Bernie Eisel towards the back.
Yeah, I think looking at the field here, it has to be Bernie Eisel. Maybe not in just terms of results, but in terms of the respect that he's got throughout the peloton. He's such a well-respected rider, not just because he's strong and he's worked tirelessly in the service of other riders. He's obviously won a semi-classic himself, Genk Wevelgem. He can win, but he's very likeable as well.
And he's fluent in several languages, which helps.
Yeah, he's fluent in several languages. He's kind, he's a joker, but also he knows how to ride as well. So he's pretty much the full package in terms of a pro. He's been around a long time as well, like an eminently likeable character. Yeah, a lot of fun, Bernie Eisel.
Or for a quick commercial break, stay with us on the Arctic Race of Norway.
For many years, TDK supports and inspires future generations through athletics.
Inspiring. I think we were brought here to inspire the young kids, but in turn, the young kids inspired us too.
Don't forget to watch the World Athletics Championships. They are here in London. I'll be there. Make sure you are.
TDK,
Forge of Empires. Develop your own city from the Stone Age to the future. Available in the App Store and at FOE.tv. Forge of Empires. Play now.
Get a free gift worth up to £300 when you spend £1,500 with beautiful clocks, lamps and mirrors for every home. Oak Furnitureland.
Gale warning issued 2042 UTC.
Mike, can we make sure we avoid this low pressure to the east? There's a force 9 approaching. Right, prep the engines and stand by.
Roger that. This is Rescue 1, ETA 4 minutes.
Never more ready to fall in love again. Never more ready to fall in love again.
Everyone uses their phone differently, so we've got a range of 4G SIMs to match. Our starter SIM is just £5 a month if you've got BT broadband at home, perfect for staying in touch. For just £11 a month, our 3 gig Essential SIM handles whatever life throws at you. While for £20 a month, our 15 gig Ultimate SIM is great if your phone buzzes and beeps every 5 minutes. And no one gives their customers fast 4G and Wi-Fi in more places than us. So get the SIM that's just right for you. Visit bt.com/mobile or call 0800 032 8877.
Welcome back to viewers in United Kingdom and Republic of Ireland. 2 minutes and 37, and well, they're riding at quite a lick now, Matt. Tailwind behind them, cross tailwind at the moment, and the breakaway, instead of increasing their own advantage, aren't making it easy for themselves. Again, a look behind there from Bernie Isa. Once more, Truls Corset is at the back, and they're not working in complete harmony here.
No, they certainly aren't. I mean, it could be that Corset has just decided that he doesn't want to work, could be that he's tired, or it could be that he's got instruction from his direct sportif, and quite often it isn't just the rider in the breakaway deciding to make things difficult for anybody else. I obviously don't know exactly what's going on, but it could be an instruction from the Astana direct sportif that you need to sit on because he could potentially win the stage. So you've got 7 other riders willing to ride, so why should you? Let's look at a stage victory. And Astana are going to want to try and get something out of this race. But from time to time there are riders who will take it upon themselves to make a decision, but generally speaking there will be an element of guidance from the direct sportif. But at the moment, with 52 kilometres still to go, all Corset is doing here is disrupting the flow of the breakaway. But again, it could be because there's particular instruction from his director sportif. But as I say, generally, even though the instruction comes from a direct sportif quite often, you'll still get other riders in the breakaway saying, come on, just give us a turn, just roll through. And so you do get riders quite often torn between not wanting to upset the breakaway and kind of be disrespected by other members of the peloton, and then not wanting to upset your direct sportif as well. So you get kind of torn. But clearly, Corset is it's rolling through there. So maybe just taking a little bit of a rest.
Well, Astana do have possibilities up there as well. They've got Andre Grifko still at 17 seconds from the lead. And what about Matty Breskel? Because this could be a finish that has his name written all over it.
Yeah.
If he gets up the hard part of the climb.
If he gets up the hard part of the climb, I mean, Breskel at the moment, I don't think he's going as well as he has done in the past. I think the finish on stage 1 would have been one that should have suited him far more than the stage today. But perhaps may have ridden himself into the race. and could perform, and perhaps is going okay. But I think stage 1 was an indicator of a lot of riders' form in this race. I don't think Brescia was quite in the place where he wants to be, perhaps.
The other section of the Danish contingent in Astana isn't where it wants to be either, because Jakob Fuglsang has broken his collarbone. Broken it in a criterium. Sums up the team's luck this year, really.
It certainly does. Yeah, very, very bad luck. Of course, we saw Aru, first part of the year, wiped out for him. He was injured before the Giro, but took that amazing stage win early in the Tour de France, but still not quite the year that they wanted. There we go. Of course, is sat on again, and now it's Hofstetter shaking his head, remonstrating with the Norwegian. He's not making any friends, especially amongst the French contingent.
Well, Eisel went to the back as well. Maybe he's trying to coax him up there. Maybe Eisel's playing the same game. 2:22 now is the gap. Hofstetter shakes his head. Can't quite believe what he's seeing. Neither can we. Look at that.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Spectacular. It really is a feast for the eyes every year, this race.
Yeah, it's become more popular as the years have gone by. It's a wonderful race to have on the calendar. Perfectly placed, I think, as well, in between the two Grand Tours.
And where we're heading at the moment is the Stramsfjorden. Out to the left-hand side. When they go across the bridge, well, actually through the tunnel, they'll go through the Riartunnelen. That's just before the second of the 3 intermediate sprints today. We'll get the Bolsfjorden on the right-hand side. Now, all this messing about is causing a bit of a split at the back.
Yeah, this, I think, is... Again, Bernie Eisel was taking himself and Petit out the back, expecting Corsair to go through. I think another situation. It's just brinkmanship. It is quite common. But also, when you have one rider constantly missing turns, what it does, it actually breaks... It not only breaks the rhythm of the group, but it forces the other riders to expend more energy, because generally speaking, in an 8-man group, there'll be a real rhythm. There'll be a very smooth kind of change of riding on the front and then dropping down, and then suddenly when one rider drops out of his place, it forces the rider at the back to make a little bit of an extra effort, again digging into the reserves, causing an extra bit of kind of undue pain and effort. So again, breaking the rhythm, and it's all about being as equitable as possible in a breakaway, especially on a long break. Near the end, of course, it's open season for racing. You'll attack each other, but we're still 48 kilometres to go, and the bunch gradually eating into their lead. You'd have thought that, given the effort that they've made to get into breakaway in the first place, that they work evenly together. That's a bit of a surprise to see Bernie Eisel dropping back. Perhaps his job is done. I have a feeling that Bernie Eisel's dropping back. He probably thinks that the breakaway is going to get caught at some point, and maybe saving himself to get some points tomorrow. I think he realises now that he's not going to get any points at the top of the climb. He's got a healthy lead in the KOM classification and recover and hit the breakaway again tomorrow to score some more points.
And certainly, if it's not helping itself, the break, what's the point in carrying on to what he might start to see as well, a bit of a failed mission?
Definitely.
Seven riders left in the breakaway. Delfos, Diaz, Hofstetter, Valle, Osterwald, joined by Corset and Petit. Burning away.
Well, you just saw Delfos there just push Corset out of the way. He really is making a bit of a nuisance of himself in that breakaway. If a rider isn't going to ride, what's very annoying is if he suddenly gets into the line, then just leaves a gap. So Corset, again, etiquette, if it's decided that he's not going to work, you've got to kind of, at some point, you've got to accept it. But you just sit at the back of the group, and what he's doing is causing a little bit of disruption in that group, which is proving to be particularly amongst the other members of the breakaway.
Now, what's going to happen in this group? Because they were really strung out about 10 kilometres further back, chasing hard. 3 teams were working. We've got a couple of teams working at the minute in Joker and BMC Racing. It looks as though Aquablue have knocked it off for the time being, because the gap's gone down to 2 minutes and 20. Is there going to be a brief let-up in hostilities behind here as well, because they know what's coming?
I think they're pretty happy with the gap at the moment. BMC haven't put anybody on the front for a little while. They're having a little bit of a rest. I think it's just teams wanting to assist with the chase, but not wanting to commit too much, because they do know what's coming up. And I think with the gap at 220 and the fact they've actually, once they do put troops on the front, the gap's coming down quite easily, means it is in control. And interestingly, we've just seen one of the other smaller Norwegian teams go on the front as well, Fix It, and I think Sparbanken are now helping with a little bit of the pacemaking too. So I think 2 minutes 14 seconds, still 46 k's to go, still 40 kilometers to the bottom of the climb. I think the situation on the road at the moment, relatively happy, so not committing too much, but just putting one rider on the front. 5 teams do that. You've got 5 or 6 guys riding through, and that's enough, I think, to keep the status quo as it is before putting some more firepower on the front on the approach to the climb itself to really bring that break back.
Yes, Sparbanken putting a man in second wheel there. They have 2 riders up there within 25 seconds of the overall lead of Dylan Teuns. They have Trond Håkon Trondsen. He's at 25 seconds in 27th position. He's their leader, 11th. 13 seconds, so they have reason to ride. In the meantime, I'm reminded of an Eric Cantona quote somewhere.
Remember that one.
2 minutes and 9. It continues to plummet, this gap.
Yeah, joking out. Riding on the front, a flick of the elbow. One of the Sparbanken riders rolls through. The wind still coming gently from the left-hand side. The lead dropping down slowly, of course. Bernie Eisel now has dropped back, thought better of it. A wise move, really, I think. Again, just testament to the real experience of that rider. His focus now is on trying to win that King of the Mountains classification. So why should he ride on the front in a group that he considers to be doomed? With the gap at 2 minutes, I'd say that the bunch have got this in control. So that just gives, I think, a little bit of an insight into the other narratives that run through this race. There's no point in riding through enough unnecessarily. Get back in the bunch. I'd imagine he's just going to tempo up this climb, because he's got 3 more King of the Mountains. Ooh, looks like there's a little bit of a crash in the
we've
bunch.
got riders down and riders from different teams as well. The Ait Energy with a rider down. BMC having their stagiaire, I think, down there. A couple of riders from Novo Nordisk. There's the Finnish champion Matti Mattinsen is there as well. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. How did this happen?
Difficult to say. Just it looks like a touch of wheels at some point. There's no road obstacles there, just maybe a little bit of a drop in concentration. All it takes is one touch of wheels and that ripple effect that goes back through the bunch. Not good for BMC though.
Jon Søveres Brevold, he was in the breakaway on day 1. He went down. He's in the man who just lost a little bit of shorts there.
Also, there was a Romain Gardy of Direct Energy. He went down too, as well as Christophe Masson.
You're watching the 5th edition of the Arctic Race of Norway. Whether it's in the mountains, out on the North Sea, or on the road where this action is happening, treated to a real feast. We've just had a bit of a silly crash at the back of the peloton. Imagine that things will be moving slowish for the moment. And 5 to 10 riders caught out. Several riders needing mechanical assistance after that. One was Jon Søveres Brevold from Team Fixit.no. We have one of the riders from Novo Nordisk involved, a rider too from Team Dimension Data. I think involved for Direct Energy was Romain Gardy. On 131, Dimitri Kleis, the rider who was adjudged to be the most aggressive yesterday, trying to get back on as well. And a few riders who necessarily didn't go down were caught up behind it as well.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes. You get that the slowing down, especially on this road. It's relatively narrow. It doesn't take too long for riders behind to be delayed, but thankfully you've got a relatively long convoy and they weren't delayed too long. And interestingly, BMC are actually still riding at the front. I think it was Bram Velten that went down in that crash. Perhaps they weren't aware that the young stagiaire was down, because normally what they do is just wait a little bit.
They really are riding now. I'm on 1 hour starting to commit at the front, and this is a bit of a surprise so early with 43 kilometers still to go. They've taken another 15 seconds off of the lead.
Well, I think they've got word from the Direct Sportif, I'd imagine. They need to try and bring this breakaway back because, of course, you've got Sebastian Delfosse at 19 seconds. He's already taken a second back, so he's actually only at 18 seconds. He does pose a threat on the road at the moment. And what they don't want to do is let this gap go to 2 minutes by the foot of the climb, because the breakaway could actually stay away. It's not the most difficult climb, so they're making sure that they play it safe. As the tailwind is going to benefit the breakaway on the run into the bottom of the climb.
Hermond Dahl in the black there for Sporebank Consort. And just behind Charles Planet is the French rider with the changing diabetes message. But he's just coming back in from that crash and picking up bidons, bits of food in the meantime. 36 getting back on is Jarl Salomane, rider from Sport Vlaanderen Baloise, and it really is moving quickly at the front. Floris Hertz now.
Yeah, Floris Hertz looking very strong. They really are taking this lead down. 1 minute and 51 seconds. That's Irvine net. Martin Irvine, the former world points race champion. Had a year off from the sport. Great to see him back in the fray. A real class rider. Very, very fast finisher indeed.
Now, all this work at the front so early on, is this BMC wanting to say, OK, with Alexander Kristoff and the bonus seconds, we want to kill this race dead today?
I think so. I think if they weren't happy with the way the tempo that was being set, and there's always a danger, because look at the wind here. Although we've got the a little bit of added disturbance, of course, from our TV helicopter, and still arguments going on within this group. Of course, Sayeth is really proven to be a little bit of a nuisance. Why doesn't he just sit at the back and just stay out of the way? There you go, Boris Valle on the back there in the white for Fortunel. Oscara having a word, shrugging his shoulders in the inhale. What are you doing, mate, basically? Like I said, there are riders who have instructions, and quite often that isn't the rider themselves, but hey, just drop back and stay out of the way.
Very, very interesting watch.
It makes a good thrust,
drama,
doesn't it?
anyway.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a soap opera unfolding.
4 days with Truls Corset in the north of Norway.
That's it.
The wind has died down a little here. Meantime, the views never die away. Lots of different fjords meet here. Been through Malangen. This is Stramsfjorden. We're going to go past Volsfjorden.
Well, in about 6 Ks, we actually go underneath one of the fjords. We have a long tunnel to go under, then they'll emerge out the other side for the second hotspot sprint of the day. But looking at the time gap, and looking at the fact we're only going to get there in 6 Ks, all those bonus seconds are going to be taken by the lead group. And Sebastian Delfosse from WB Varan Classic, he is the rider that's going to benefit the most, so expect him to be to the fore on that particular hotspot.
Is close to the front as well now. Dylan turns up there on the left-hand side. Like you say, I think with the wind they weren't taking any chances there at all. It has died down a little now, but you can just see every time they turn a corner, there are bits that are more exposed. And if you get a little gust and you're in the wrong place, well, your team are going to ask you what you were doing.
You can just see Martin Irvine there on the front. What he's doing is riding in the centre of the road. The wind is coming, now it's actually coming from the right-hand side, so they're swirling around, but the wind is gently helping them. But he's leaving just enough space for the riders who are assisting front to roll through, but forcing the rest of the riders to the other. Forcing the rest of the riders to the other side of the road. There's a bit of shelter here from the bushes and the trees on the side of the road. Bernie Eisel drifting back. His job for today is done.
It's a great jersey, isn't it? A salmon jersey. They've got, is that scales, I think, on the shoulders there.
Yeah, I mean, a wonderful attention to detail there. And it suits him, doesn't it? His first ever climber's jersey. He's wearing it well. And he's set fair, perhaps, to take that all the way to the finish tomorrow. It's certainly not over, but he's got a nice little lead. 13 points to 10 as we head into the final stage.
Glad it's turned out into a nice afternoon, because we probably wouldn't have seen any of this. So remember the uphill finish last year that you and I called actually start to finish. There was a start to finish broadcast, a rehearsal, if you like, for what they did at Tour de France this year, and we hardly saw anything. It was that cloudy, it was that miserable, that fine rain that soaks you through all day long. Difference between those two different groups on the road. 2 kilometres on the road, in fact, between them still just under 2 minutes. And it sounds as though it's time for us just to go off to take a quick commercial break.
Be one with the game. Players, passion, and victory. Be one with it. Hungo Tire, an official partner of the UEFA Europa League.
Choosing the right truck for my business was an important decision. With so many options, I had to choose the right one.
At Vanarama, we're here to support you every step of the way.
Benjamin, my account manager, was brilliant. If you find a better deal, even after ordering, they'll match it.
Transform your business with a brand new pickup truck in 2017. We've got amazing deals, all with fast free delivery. And we can fit a range of accessories.
Jimbai Thai. Togetherness. A connection beyond man and machine. The all-new Mazda CX-5. Available 0% APR. Drive together.
Save up to £180 over a year in the BT summer sale. Get unlimited BT broadband for $24.99 a month, including line rental on a 12-month contract. Plus, you can have BT Sport now free for 12 months. If you join online before the 15th of August, you'll also get a £40 BT reward card. So don't miss out saving up to £180 over a year, because the BT summer sale ends 15th of August. Visit bt.com/sale or call 0800 028 0048 to join BT today.
Anything can happen when you're out and about, but with the AA, there's no need to worry. Join from just £39 a year. Our cutting-edge technology means we can fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside in around 30 minutes. And with us, you'll get unlimited call-outs, so we'll always keep you rolling. So why wait? Breakdown membership from £39 a year. Search AA Summer or call 0800 107 1705. The AA, because anything can happen.
Not far away from the tunnel now. The Iruya tunnel goes over to the island of Kvaloya. 1 minute and 57, breakaway doing okay. They've lost Bernie Eisel, but they seem to have got interested again. As you see a Union flag there in amongst the Norwegian flags. Thanks for all your tweets, company on Twitter. Thanks to Ali for tweeting in, and you can do the same. Give us your predictions for the next couple of days. How's it going to pan out? Is it going to be blow the race apart today for BMC and Dylan Teuns, or will Katusha Alpecin help Alexander Kristoff hold on? Will it be a bonus seconds affair tomorrow, or something else? You can tweet at Real Stevens for the man next to me, at Rob Hatch TV, hashtag Home of Cycling. For all your comments and predictions, please. It is an intriguing race, and one that I'm sure many of you are watching, not just for the very different and beautiful landscape that we get. Look at this. I mean, I've been to Norway on several occasions, but this is something very, very different.
It does. I mean, you can understand why they've got this race. I mean, it is just a beautiful postcard, isn't it, of just stunning scenery. And I've got my laptop open. I'm kind of tempted to book a holiday up here.
Booked it, packed it.
Booked it, packed it. You know the rest. But no, absolutely stunning scenery. And we were talking about it before we came on air and earlier on. It's the amount of riders who've taken to social media just to say how much they're enjoying this race. Instagram. It is proved to be a very, very popular addition to the international calendar. 2.HC race now.
That's why it does surprise me that some of the teams who have been present in the last few editions haven't returned. And I know there are economic factors. I know there are all sorts of different things. Size of your squad, and let's face it, we have a very, very congested and almost, message to the UCI here and Mr. Cookson, overcrowded race calendar at this time of the year. So I know it's not always the team's fault that they don't turn up or go, but defending champion Sky, for example, haven't turned up here. And yes, there's a lot on, I get that. But everything you read and hear about hotels, about the way that riders enjoy this race, it all seems to be positive. People like coming here and racing.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. There's been no negative comments at all about the Arctic race of Norway. It's, the riders enjoy it. It's very well organised. It's just and it's in a part of the world that ordinarily you'd never get to see as well. It's a great race to commentate on. It's always good racing. I think the organisers over the last few years have gradually tweaked it to make it just that little bit more exciting, give it that little bit more richness in terms of the narrative kind of thread.
Well, here's one of those things coming up. Sorry to interrupt, Matt, but we've got one of 3 intermediate sprints all carrying bonus seconds, and that we talked about whether it would be a bonus day tomorrow and a really close thing on the GC or not. But you've got that opportunity for things to happen all the time.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more unpredictable. And of course, you've got smaller teams. Some teams already bought 5 riders, but you can have 6. But the GC is very, very finely balanced. You've got Dylan Teuns, as we know, leading. Only 2 seconds behind is Andrea Pasqualon of 1-2 Group Goubert. He's only 2 seconds behind. Christophe at 3. We've still got many time bonuses out on the road, as you say. August Jensen at 7. Michael Creeder, who's climbing well, at 11 seconds. And then Hulgaard at 12. Then a heap of riders on 13 seconds. In fact, you have to go the top 40 riders are all within a minute, although I think today will make a bit of a difference. But I think because of the climb, it's not brutally steep. There will, of course, be some sort of selection, but I think it's going to be very tight as we go into the final day. I think it will be decided tomorrow, although I do expect Teuns to impose himself again today. It's just how much time he can take on the other riders today, or if anybody else, of course, can spring a surprise. But I think most intriguingly for me, it's going to be how long can Alexander Kristoff hold on, and what will his team do to assist him?
Bernie Eyes was on the wheel of the young climber Ben O'Connor there.
Possibly a good tip for today, Ben O'Connor as well.
"33 kilometres from the conclusion of stage 3 of the Arctic Race of Norway 2017. We're following the trawler ourselves for the moment. Riders still following the breakaway. 1:39. It's been a really well controlled afternoon so far from the chasing group. Still 122 riders strong, this race field. So with 7 up the road, my maths are right, there's 115 chasing them, and really doing the chasing. It's been an even fight, hasn't it? All right, 7 riding at the front, not all of them may be contributing, and there's been 4 or 5 riders rolling off and riding through and ready to go into this tunnel now under the fjord, taking them to the next island, the island of Kvaløya. And they've been riding pretty well together in the peloton today.
Yeah, well, there's because it's so, as we said just a few moments ago, it's still very tightly packed at the top. Every team's got a bit of interest. Of course, you have to leave it to BMC to ride for the majority of the day. We're just seeing the riders from Delco Marseille, Provence KTM, the pro-continental French team, moving to the front in that light blue kit. They have a rider 10th overall, Quentin Paché. He's a pretty good ruler, stroke climber. And again, this climb, although it is going to be difficult. It's not as difficult as some of the climbs we've seen in the past, and there's not been massive selection, so there's a few riders who definitely think they're in with a shout today, if not for the win, but for placing highly on the general classification. Of course, a top 10 overall in a race like this, highly sought after for some of especially the pro-continental teams in this race. So that's why we're seeing numerous teams quite willing to assist with the pacemaking, because they do think they've got a chance. And this, I think, is the biggest day where we'll see the proper shape come to the general classification, and a lot of teams have riders within punching distance as well. But what you can't count out as well is a little bit of misfortune actually befalling Dylan Teuns as well. So why not just try and make sure that you're there or thereabouts, commit 1 or 2 riders to the front every now and again, just to keep the momentum of the peloton going, just in case, or a chance to present itself.
You could say some taking the boat route. Look at the wind blowing across there. It's probably a good job for a few of the teams at the front. Too many teammates around and riders that they're going underground here. Blowing a gale right across. There's the exit from the tunnel. We've just been past the Stram Gord. And that's an abandoned farm, actually. Abandoned since the 1960s, it now hosts the Folk Museum. And remember yesterday we had a bit of a listen to some of the folk music, didn't we, at the end? And
we did. It was, yeah, we were. That wasn't queued up. It came as a little bit of a surprise, but didn't take the edge off nonetheless. Quite an interesting rendition, wasn't it, from the top of the mountain?
Well, maybe they've come to play at the museum today, because it's been around since the 60s. The farm itself that it took over, around since the 19th century, so a lot of look back at the way that the locals forged the life for themselves before, of course, the advent of oil and fisheries and big business in this part of the world. Breakaways out of the tunnel. Still 7 riders, and guess who's still at the back? It's the Viking.
There we go, he's not doing a thing at all. At least he's keeping out of trouble now. At least he's not winding the other riders up. As we see, the rider with the most to gain on the front. No good shot of Sebastian Delfosse, 34 years of age, experienced Belgian. Looking good. He's going to want to try and take a few points at this next hot spot. The road just kicks up here, and they actually very briefly swing back into the headwind before they go through the hot spot sprint, twist around, and pick up the tailwind before swinging left to the foot of the climb.
I've learnt a Norwegian word this morning.
Oh, hit with it.
Fantastisk. It looked pretty fantastic, that, didn't it?
Definitely did.
And that's a scene you can see until midnight in summer. I think the dark has just returned this month. And certainly in much of the end of May, entire month of June, bits of July as well. 24 hours of light in this part of the world.
It is. When I went to Norway for the World Championships, it was quite dark because we went in, I think it was October. I've been to northern Denmark at the height of summer, and it is quite strange trying to go to sleep. I had to have blackout curtains in the hotels, and we're coming back from a night out, 11:30. The sun was in the sky. It's very, very strange if it's something that you're not used to. A special place.
So you'd just be going out at 11:30. Never mind coming back.
Easy on, easy. I was racing. I shouldn't have said that, really. Sure, the team manager might be listening. That's Bramia now on the front. 3 times Irish road.
Michel Credo was a couple of wheels just behind him. He has to be alert and ready. Meantime, those who've done their jobs already for Aqua Blue out the back. Sprint is coming up. All bonus seconds to be taken by this group.
Interesting that Sebastian Delfosse has decided to take it up here. Perhaps looking at the overall time of trying to stay away rather than the points, unless there's been an agreement in the group, because he's got most to gain, that he will lead and take it through.
But if he takes the bonus seconds here, then he gets it a little closer. 19 seconds away. There's movement on the right-hand side from Hofstede. Here's Corset. This is going to be unpopular. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
He is proving to be a very, very unpopular rider.
So you've got to ride if you want to take the points, is the message, I think, from Hofstede.
Hofstede, I mean, this is the unwritten rules of cycling playing off. I mean, they're unwritten for a reason. And
someone's had enough. Adrian Petit's had enough. He doesn't want to listen to this anymore. Up the road, Hofstede and Corset can argue all day long for all he cares. This is what happened. Hofstede knew this was happening, tried to get across the road, and I think it's Hofstede. All right, there's going to be talk, there's going to be anger, there's going to be arguments. These two young guys going at each other like two boxers there. But as far as the UCI is concerned, the commissaires are concerned, I think Hofstede will be the one to be punished there.
Yeah, Hofstede, let's be honest with you, deviated from his line. As wrong as it is from a Corsair to sit back. I mean, like I said, there's no rules. Corsair can do what he wants. He can sit at the back of the group and jump them. All he's going to do in the next few months within the... Hofstede there did deviate from his line quite considerably. But it makes for interesting viewing. But he certainly isn't a particular popular rider. And riding very strange. I don't know why, apart from there's always a time bonus on offer, but he's 8 minutes adrift on the general classification. And he's certainly not taking away any seconds from anybody else. He's just breaking the rhythm of this group. And like you said, Adrian Petit, well, he's had enough of that. And he's forged a solo route up ahead.
One man in this peloton celebrating his birthday today, Nicolas Vlamini, who is riding for Team Dimension Data. Brand new signing. He's come from the Continental team, and he's a rider who our very own Magnus Bäckstedt knows very well from his Bäckstedt Hot Chili development squad as well down in South Africa. So very happy birthday to him, and well, his team's already having a very good time of it with Bernie Eisel out there, and I know he's a really interesting rider, isn't he?
Yeah, as you say, he was part of the Hot Chili development team along with Magnus Bäckstedt, and has been mentored actually by Ben Swift, of course, who spends a lot of time down in South Africa training, and he won the under-23 climbers jersey at the Baby Giro this year. So a very, very talented rider indeed, and came from a very, very difficult background as well. So great to see him finally signing, going through the development team, and then finally signing a contract with the World Tour level.
There he is, right inside, just before the shot change, wearing number 63 on his back. So Nicolas Dlamini from South Africa, now in the world of professional cycling.
Yeah, a big couple of years ahead for that rider.
Currently sits 49th overall at 1 minute and 54. This breakaway, well, it's battering itself to bits.
It's at 6s and 7s. Boris Valet has just gone clear with a rider from Co-op. That's Uli Andre Oostevol, young 23-year-old. We have a bit of a gap, but complete disorganisation behind. Hofstetter now goes as well.
Petit came back to have a word with Corset then as well, and Hofstetter in the red goes. Corset behind, holding on. Diaz there as well.
With the speed they're going now, 1 minute 18 from the front rider to the peloton. Corset not interested at all in chasing. You can just see by the flags, the riders have now picked up that little bit of a tailwind. But Delphos eager to try and get back in contact, because he is the rider that's got most to gain. Remember, here sits only at, it was at 18 seconds. I think he did get third in that hotspot sprint. I think he led the rest of them across the line, so he'll be at 17 seconds now on the general classification, so eager to keep on going. And meanwhile, BMC setting that rhythm behind, assisted by Aquablue. Matt Bramier doing some long turns on the front as well, but the gap has really come down now. It hasn't helped that they haven't been riding in an organised fashion at the front. Just those little sharp attacks, then slowing down. Means that the peloton have taken a big chunk of time away.
I think this is the area of Tiesnes. Nature reserve around here. Lots of agriculture as well. There's some rare water birds around the area.
The shipwreck there as well, by the looks of it.
German and Norwegian fans on the side of the road, enjoying watching different sections of what remains of the breakaway.
It's a rolling bit of road, this. Just looking at the again, the small scale of our profile doesn't really give you any sort of indication. This is actually a tough bit of terrain, only small little rises, but at this deep into the race to really start to sting the legs. Quite little opportunities for the brake to start attacking, but we've got 4 solid riders now out in front, and there is that wreck. Oh, it's pretty spectacular, that, isn't it?
There it is, Tiesnes. Certainly not ugly.
Even the shipwrecks are beautiful, aren't they?
Running out of superlatives this week. Look at the clarity of the water. I wouldn't mind going for a swim in there.
You might need a wetsuit on, otherwise you might get a bit chilly.
Here's Matt Bramier. Just behind him 1 hour.
Could see that. Just interesting, just saw Matt, for those of you watching and wonder why Matt Bramier was pointing out a hole or a bit of debris on the road, just to make sure his fellow riders didn't go down.
FISU, today's stars, tomorrow's leaders.
It's time to pump up your mobile, people. Let's do this. PlusNet gives you 5 gig of data, 1,500 minutes and unlimited text for £10 a month. And now, roam like at home for no extra cost. Oh, that'll do. Get this more than double data deal by the 31st of August. Call 0800 731 9000 now. PlusNet will do you proud.
What?
Go compare. If money's tight, who'll see you right? That's Go Compare. Find your perfect deal from many, or they don't make a single penny. I wouldn't recommend you look elsewhere. Go Compare. When winter chills, cut fuel bills with Go Compare. For insurance, home or motor, they're just the place to go to. You know you can rely on Go Compare. Check them out without a doubt, they're right up there. Their unbiased information could sink billions across the nation. Proudly independent, free and
Black of bees came to make it hotter. We beat the fire starter. Bubbling up just like lava, heated like a sauna. Penetrating through your body armor. Rhythmically we massage ya.
.103 for those 4 riders remaining. Those remain Ola Andre Ostervold, Borri Valle, Hugo Hofstetter and Sebastian Delfosse, who did pick up a bonus second on the way back, so he's now at 18 seconds from the lead, moves up a few places in the GC. He's the man in the luminous yellow on the right-hand side. Just behind him, Hofstetter in the red. 116 at the back here is Valle, the Belgian. Just in front of him, the Norwegian rider, Ola Andre Ostervold. 1 minute. And you would say there's probably no chance of them surviving now, Matt.
I think it is very, very difficult. They're starting to struggle a bit now. There was an added bit of impetus when they went clear, of course. And they are working very well together, but there's some renewed vigour in the peloton, determined to bring these riders back. I'd imagine that the breakaway will probably stay away to the next hotspot sprint. That comes with 12 kilometres to go, so another 10 Ks. So I think Delfosse in particular will be riding hard. But the difficulty about being in a breakaway, getting these points and thinking about the overall classification is that he's digging deep into his reserves, and to try and hang on the climb I think is going to be a big feat for Delfosse now. But again, you have to try. Yeah, sometimes the bunch will get it right and mistime it. Today isn't one of those days. It looks like BMC have ridden a bit of a blinder today in terms of controlling things, but they have been assisted by several other teams because of course the race at the moment is still wide open.
When your team's ridden a blinder like this, you have to back it up. And we questioned Dylan Teuns last week in the Tour of Poland because at times he was looking a little weak on the final stage after having the jersey for a day or two. He did back it up. He only just won, but he beat Rafał Majka, he beat some big, strong names. Dylan Teuns will be under pressure again to deliver after his team's worked for 3 days now.
Yeah, he certainly will, but I think he's been protected very well. One of the things that we noticed about yesterday's stage in particular, we couldn't see him. So we hardly noticed him at all because...
He's on the left-hand side here, being brought up right now, right as we look at it in the blue jersey. But yes, we hardly saw him for 2 days.
I mean that in a good way. We've not seen him for 2 days. He's not been riding in the wind. He's been sat about 15th, 20th wheel, which in a field like this, on a course like this, is absolutely fine. Hardly put his nose in the wind at all. Been protected very, very well by his team. So riding shrewd, staying out of trouble, but more importantly, staying out of the wind, conserving as much energy as he can to try and save himself for this final climb. I think he will go on the offensive on this climb. It's just at what point. Is he that confident that he think he can leave the rest of the field midway up the climb? But I think the danger is because of the great. With about 2/3 of the way up, there's a completely flat section before it kicks up again. It's whether he's got the confidence to go it alone. And there is a as well, which is another fact that you need to play into. If it was
how will that affect things?
It will mean there's more shelter for a lot of riders. It's easy, you could split it, but it also means that there's more shelter. If you're a good climber, the kind of conditions you want are completely still conditions or a tailwind on a climb. and then you're essentially blowing up the climb. Not a lot of places for you to shelter. But if it's a headwind or a crosswind on a climb, apart from on exposed sections, it means that there is a little bit of an opportunity to shelter from another rider and save a little bit of energy.
Hello to the world from one of the more rural areas that we see bike racing. There's Tromsø up ahead. Tromsø Island as well. We've seen more bridges than we've had up dinners this week.
So the quality of the air, the clarity in these pitches is absolutely stunning, isn't it?
Here's Ostervold, 92. They've been good this week, Team Corp. They've still got August Jensen up there with just a 7-second gap. 20 kilometers from the finish. That means we are just less than 15 k's from the start of the climb now. And it's game heads on, game faces on for everybody behind.
Yeah, just look, this is a real team time trial formation. Riders doing about 20 or 30 revs on the front, then swinging off, working very, very well together. No sign, of course, of the dysfunctional nature of the breakaway, which we saw earlier on. They're all fully committed and actually holding steady at the moment. The lead did drop down, and that's holding steady around 55 seconds to a minute. So they are riding extremely well, and they have started to pick up that little bit of a tailwind. There's some nasty headwind sections as the roads twisted after the hotspot sprint. Got another hotspot sprint still to come, and that's going to come in about 7 kilometers time, and that will take them after about 5 kilometers or so after that. Sorry, 6. That is when they hit the foot of the climb.
Yeah, that intermediate sprint at Kvaløyseter comes very, very close to Tromsø, the city itself. That's just about the closest we get to the city today before we start and finish in the city tomorrow. We'll then head left inland again, finishing up on Finnvikdalen.
Yeah, just look at the formation now. Another rider from Aqua Blue on the front.
Look at Team Joker. White jersey there in fourth wheel. Marcus Fulgaard, best young rider. Of course, he's looking after that jersey because Dylan Turns is still in the youth category. He's 6th overall at 12 seconds. And Team Joker, remember, leading the team classification prize.
Well, their worst placed rider is at 1:54. All of the other riders are within 31 seconds. So Halvorsen, of course, the under-23 world road champion, he's 29th at 31 seconds. Then they have a clutch of riders only under 13 seconds behind. So they have a real lot of options. That's why we're seeing them committing a rider to the front. Matt Bramier there sat second wheel. And then you have Floris Hertz of BMC sat just behind him. And of course the Norwegian road champion sat pretty, the powerful figure.
Rasmus Tiller is the Norwegian road champion. He's the man you were talking about at 1 minute and 54. So he's the man the furthest down. The day started in the Lyngen Alps, and it's going to finish close to Tromsø, up Finnvikdalen. The uphill finish of this year's Arctic Race of Norway. Not quite as difficult as last year's climb. It leaves it open. It leaves it a race which could be won by anybody. Still the favourite to do so is Dylan Turns. His BMC racing team have ridden throughout the day. First of all, there's an intermediate sprint to get out of the way. As it stands, 47 seconds the gap. 5 k's down the road for those. It looks as though the bonus seconds probably will be taken out of the equation by these guys.
Yeah, I think that gap and the distance still to go will mean these riders will roll across the line. But I think then it's definitely the advantage Peloton.
Interesting that we haven't seen Team Katusha Alpecin at all towards the front today. They are saving energy, saving riders. What will be the strategy for them and Alexander Kristoff, if there is in fact a strategy today?
I think they'll just try and protect him as much as possible. I think what you need to do with this climb is just to break it down into its relative component parts. Alexander Kristoff will not have any problem at all for the first couple of k's on the climb. Then you only have 3 kilometers to go, and if you can break down a climb into chunks and use that mentally to your advantage, then that can play a big part. They've not committed anybody to the front at all, therefore the whole of the team you'd like to think are rested and look, and they will want to try and protect Alexander Kristoff from the wind. The wind is going to come from the left-hand side. If they shelter Kristoff, even on this midsection, it means that he might be able to stay in contact. But that's when we see Bassett. I think if BMC leave it late, they're not going to open up too much of a gap just in the last few hundred metres of the climb. But I think Katusha's plan today is to try and just see how far Alexander Kristoff can go up this climb. But if we see Astana come into the mix as well and start attacking, and also Joe riders up in the mix, and of course they're a team where this is one of the most important races of the year. There are several teams that are going to want to try and unseat Alexander Kristoff, but just looking at the way that they're going to try their utmost and then go for card number 2, which I think will be Rein Taramay for the stage.
Rein Taramay, a former winner overall of this race 2 years ago now. Defending champion Gianni Moscon is not here. Team Sky not present at this race this year. BMC, remember, won the inaugural edition with Thor Hushovd. Can they win it with the man who's just disappeared out of view now? Briefly in that shot in the blue jersey, the leader's jersey, Dylan Teuns, the winner of the last 2 stage races he's taken part in. The Tour de Wallonie, and after that, the man won on the World Tour, Tour of Poland. 15.5 kilometres to go. 36 seconds now for the 4-man break.
It's a 10k to the bottom of the climb, and the lead really starting to tumble now. Matt Bramier, such a good ruler. I've been corrected actually on Twitter. I said 3 times national road champion. It's actually 5.
Wow.
There you go.
Made it a speciality. That and winning a crate of beer at the Tour of Flanders the other year.
Of course, that went down very, very well. I think he was advised by my good friend Daniel Lloyd to go early. I think the crate of beer was after about 25, 26 Ks. Lloyd, I think he messaged him and said, go for this.
Is that because Dan knows more about beer or about the cobbled routes in Belgium?
I think maybe a bit of both, but probably more about beer.
Hofstetter at the front in the red here. Well, it's been such a popular tourist advert that we've had a few tweets from a few of you planning bike holidays now in Norway. Colin D. Kerr, one of those, is seriously looking at a bike holiday in the north of Norway now. Accommodation is a converted trawler.
Here we go.
Message for Thor Hushovd, the man we were talking about on the side of the road. The Norwegian cycling star who really did launch the latest wave and the latest cycling boom in Norway.
Oh, definitely. He's a really popular figure. Former world road champion, of course. Multiple stage winner in the Tour de France, and a really popular figure in pro cycling. Now an ambassador for the Arctic Race of Norway, doing a great job too.
He was at the Tour de France, actually, selling this race to the French people. He ended up doing a stunt where he was out doing a climb on, I think it was roller skis.
Oh, right.
You know, the sort of cross-country skiing. You can train in the summer with sort of rollers on the bottom, a bit like when you go rollerblading or something like that. And he was out completing one of the climbs of the Tour de France on roller skis.
Well, there we go. Well, funnily enough, while I was on the sprint is just coming up. I did see the Italian cross-country skiing squad while I was in the up on the climbs on skis. Oh, brutal.
So just a few hundred metres to go. Hofstetter at the front. Bonus seconds will be taken by these guys. That'll be a sigh of relief, I think, for Dylan Teuns. Not his natural terrain. Kvaløysletta. Final intermediate sprint of the day. They're going to roll through here. At least for the moment. Delphos at the back. I wonder if he can try and take something.
Yes,
he moves up.
Just to see if he can steal another second. I think he's rolling across.
2 seconds.
Yeah, I think he just got 2 seconds.
So he's got 3. He's now at 16 seconds overall. We've got Hofstetter in the meantime. Up there at 5:21. He's not too bothered about all that. He's thinking about the points for the points jersey.
He certainly is. No, he's not too far off. And a very good finisher. It could be a good stage for Hofstetter on the final stage. Should he get over those climbs? Sprinted extremely well yesterday, but the bunch not far behind now. Being led now by BMC.
32 seconds. A little bit of a bunching up for the first time in a while. They know what's coming now.
Yeah, they certainly do. Climb not too far away, 7.6 kilometres exactly to the bottom of the climb. A great reception here by the crowd.
And there's that tailwind. It's moving along quite quickly. The MC still racing and still riding. A little bit of a conversation there at the back between Bram Velten, the stagiaire, and the old man of this particular peloton, Bernie Eisel, as Hofstetter sets off on his own. A lot of anger to get out of his system.
Yeah, he's a little bit frustrated, but as well as sprinting, he's trying to go clear solo.
And of course, he wants that red number on his back.
Yeah, there is that. There's the Viking jersey, the most aggressive. Well, the most active runner, and there's the social media jersey.
The Viking jersey's voted for on Twitter. If you want to do that, it's on the Arctic Race of Norway official Twitter feed. Yeah, and that red number voted for by the commissaires, which is the same. I know it's not a proper English word, but we get it from French, don't they? The combativity prize.
Indeed, and it's similar in the Tour de France, of course. That red number. Lots of races adopting that, and now it's Boris Valle. Great rider, Boris Valle. Likes this sort of rolling terrain. Took a stage last year in the Tour of Wallonia. So very, very capable rider indeed. Only 24 years of age. Way down on the general classification, but clearly feeling very good.
33 seconds as Valle tries to get as flat as possible. This is the moment he went.
He's actually a very strong sprinter, Boris Valle, as well, so using his sprint power just on that little rise to accelerate clear.
Kitesurf time. Our very own Juan Antonio Fletcher, like being out there on the waves. So the climb's coming up. We're going to take one final break before we get there. Do not go away.
One, two, three.
For many years, TDK supports and inspires future generations through athletics.
Inspiring. I think we were brought here to inspire the young kids, but in turn, the young kids inspired us too.
Don't forget to watch the World Athletics Championships. They are here in London. I'll be there. Make sure you are.
TDK. Forge of Empires. Develop your own city from the Stone Age to the future. Available in the App Store and at FOE.tv. Forge of Empires. Play now.
At Booking.com, you'll find a wide range of accommodation. From sun-drenched holidays to weekend getaways. For every possible budget. And if you have to cancel, cancel. Most of the time it's free. And you can always book again. Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
Knowledge of the law is one thing, but knowing people is quite another. Which is why our solicitors really get to know you and not just your case. Widely regarded as the #1 personal injury law firm, we help you get the best possible medical care and rehabilitation. Call us today or visit us at irwinmitchell.com. Irwin Mitchell, the expert hand with the human touch.
Skechers Sport with memory foam.
Some people love the quality of Oak Furnitureland's real hardwood so much, they want to fill their entire home with it. Like this beautiful natural oak double bed, only $447. And right now, get a free gift worth up to £300 when you spend £1,500. Choose from mirrors, clocks and lamps. You can furnish every room of your home at Oak Furnitureland.
But I like my chicken burger dipped in chili sauce and then reheat it. I'm a dirty eater.
Tap the app today.
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 A lot of the work, they put the two riders on the front, committed them. This breakaway now with only 15 seconds lead. Well, that is going to be brought back. Astana now putting troops on the front. Now Astana just want to try and make things as difficult as they can for Alexander Kristoff. The last thing you want to do is carry Kristoff to the finish. We know that he's going to be good in those hotspot sprints tomorrow. He is a danger in this race. They're going to want to try and make it difficult, try and dislodge him on the climb. And that's why we're seeing Astana now going the front. And the breakaway just about 100 metres in front now.
There's Putty on the right-hand side, having done the last little bit of a job that he could do today to put Direct Energie and their men up there. Remember, they have Fabien Grelier, 12th overall at 13 seconds. Lots and lots of riders still within opportunities here. It's a very open race at the Arctic race of Norway, and it's extremely difficult to predict.
It certainly is. So BMC have now gone to the front again. It was actually Floris Hertz again going to the front. One man who isn't at the front, his job done for the day is Bernie Eisel there in the Mountains jersey. He'll live to fight another day in that jersey.
Just in front of him, Jonathan Restrepo, also a man who's done his job today. Bram Velten for BMC, also involved in a crash a little further down the road. Probably, what, about 45 minutes ago now. Just 9 seconds for those left in the breakaway. Delphos at the back here has had a couple of bonus seconds back today, so he'll go into tomorrow, if he stays with the group, at 17 seconds to go. But staying with the group when you've been in the breakaway all day is pretty much too big an ask.
Yeah, I think so. He's starting to sit on a little bit now, so he's moved himself temporarily perhaps into the top 15 in this race. And if he manages to hold on and not lose much more time, I'm certainly going to doff my cap. But no, very, very difficult ask, because I think this is going to be very, very quick up this climb. I think it will stay together for the first couple of Ks, and then the gradient starts to bite 1.5 kilometres the way up.
Look out for Cofidis as well. They're riding pretty well for Dorian Godon, who's at 45 seconds. Desperately trying to try and keep their riders up there. 5.5 kilometres to go, and this is where the climb starts. 5.2 kilometres is the classification. The first kilometre has just less than a 5% average. You can just see it wind its way up the road and inland from here up to the finish at Finnvikdalen. It's all about fighting for position as they go on to the climb now.
It certainly is. It's almost like we're heading into a bunch sprint. Lots of teams active at the front, trying to make sure that their key rider, the key rider for the stage, the GC protagonists are protected and to the fore. But the start of this climb, as you said, Rob, is very, very gradual. I don't expect to see any big splits straight away. They swing left here to the foot of the climb. They will now meet a little bit of a crosswind. They've got some shelter.
4.9% average gradient over just over 5 kilometres. Astana take it up at the front. They're doing their best to try and set up either Breschel or Grivko. Grivko at 17 seconds, Breschel at 19 seconds. Little bits of movement as we can still see Borivale just trying to hang on as the last man in this breakaway. Remember, the most combative rider of the day prize still up for grabs. It's a real fight as Hofstetter in the red is trying to fight with him, but I think he's going to lose that battle. It is going to go to Valle. Astana trying to put the pressure on and trying to move their riders up. Where's the leader? Where are BMC? Out of sight at the moment. I can see that Katusha Alpecin have riders up towards the front. Sengomise have some web as well. Sport Plunder and Balwise, and not too far behind, Michel Creder, who's looking very, very good for Aqua Blue. In the meantime, those out of the game, it's pretty clear they're out of the game. The Bulgarian champion Mihailov dropping back, and this has been a fast start here.
It is actually Matti Breschel, I think, who's gone to the front now, putting it in the gutter. Remember, the wind is coming from the left-hand side here, so unsurprisingly, Breschel putting it in the gutter. Very, very exposed. And already on this climb, interestingly, riders letting the wheels go, and you can just see Alexander Kristoff there in the centre.
Kristoff, and just 3 wheels in front of him, moving up into the gap as Kristoff is having to fight to close the wheel, is Hulgaard. He's in the white jersey, the best young rider. I'm looking for the overall leader, and he's not in the shot at the minute.
I've seen the overall leader. Is he near the front? Yes, he is. He's in third wheel at the moment. Dylan Tjern sat very, very well there. Just on his wheel is Rein Tarame of Katusha. And I think Grifko is in fifth wheel. So it's some good work here done by Matti Breschel. Such an experienced rider, splitting the field very, very early on this climb and using the wind as well as the gradient.
And we're approaching the hardest part. That comes in just under a kilometre's time. From then on, the average for the next couple of kilometres is around 6 and 7%.
This is where Matti Breschel will use his immense strength. Double medalist in the World Road Race Championships. Has been quite all day long, and he's reduced this group already to about 20 riders. Where is Christoph? Has he managed to get into that first group?
Christoph is there. He's halfway down and looking pretty good at the moment. Elliot Littard is just in front of him. He's the Belgian rider from Sport Vlaanderen Baloise. Also there, a couple of riders from Gazprom Rossfellow. 171 there is Simone Ponzi, the Italian, but he's already out of it for the overall general classification at 2 minutes and 23 down.
Well, this is more like a Belgian crosswinds than a climb. Not overly steep, but the damage that has been caused there by the Astana rider.
Now turns on the left-hand side. First little bit of a look around. Sindre Skustad Lunke on the left as it's a move from Grifko. And Andre Grifko is making his move for Astana. Who's going to chase him? 17 seconds down in the overall general classification. Now Jakob Venter is going to come up to the front for dimension data. Has a couple of riders behind him. He's looking after, of course, the stagiaire Gebre Isgabir, who's in this group a little further down. The group's been allowed to swell again, and you can just see that there's a BMC rider on the right-hand side coming up, still there, able to help Dylan Tjern. Grifko not managing to get any gap, really.
No, he's opened it up a little bit, but Jaco Venter there of Dimension Data, the South African, bringing him back. But as you said, Rob, as the gradients pitch, the speed has dropped down, allowing riders to get back into contention, including Alexander Kristoff. But here, where the road starts to rear its head, that's where you'd expect the heavier rider just start to struggle. He's staying right on the inside, trying to give himself as much shelter as he can from any of the wind. But Grifko now just starting to eke a little bit of a gap.
It looked as though it was an attack that really wasn't going to go away a minute ago, but he's stuck with it. He's had a couple of carrots to chase in those motorbikes ahead, and Venter is under pressure to try and bring this back. Just looking down, the leader is still in there. He has one man to help him. That one man is starting to ride at the front now. Bulgaard is slipping towards the back of that group, by the way. The man who was 6th overall. White jersey is the best young rider for Team Joker.
Well, there's only about 1.5 kilometres of steep gradient. Then it drops to about 2%. Then it's flat for nearly a kilometre. Still lots of riders in contention. Venter leading Dylan Tjern, the leader of this race, keeping it into the gutter, making sure the riders are fighting for position.
Fabien Grelier of Direct Energie still in the group as well. Remember, it's not just the stage win that's in play here. It is the overall general classification. The man who's in the lead in the light blue, the turquoise jersey here, the Ukrainian Andre Grifko, started the day 17th overall at 17 seconds. But let's not forget, Matt, with 2.8 Ks to go, there are 10 bonus seconds on the road for the winner.
Well, Grifko as well, a very, very good time trial. This is now left to Dylan Tjern. The last place Dylan Tjern's want to be at the moment is at the front of the bunch. That is where he is. Nobody's going to give him any assistance. And Christoph is still there. Great ride by Christoph. Only got about 800 metres of the steep part before it starts to flatten out. Looking good for Christoph at the moment, but Grifko also looking very strong.
Dylan Tjern's in second wheel. He has Amel Moinard setting the pace here, but it can't be a pace that is too hard because we've got attacks coming out of the bunch. CCC Sprandi Polkovica with their rider up there attacking, being followed by one of the riders as well from Delco Marseille, Quentin Paché, I think it is. CCC Sprandi Polkovica in the orange. They had several riders up there. Jonas Koch was their best placed rider, 16th at 17 seconds. They also had Michal Pawuta at 23 seconds as well. Now Grifko losing ground.
He's losing ground now. It's the CCC Sprandi closing the gap. Still a sizable group here, Rob, that's all together. I thought there might be a reasonably big group. Still Alexander Kristoff sat midway down, about 20th position, holding steady. And this is where things start to flatten out. But remember, the last 500 metres is where it starts to rear its head again. Look at the face of Kristoff.
Grifko still having a go. 2.2 kilometres to go. Gets a little bit easier again in a moment's time. Amel Moinard just controlling things. Dylan Tjern, you get the feeling, can go when he needs to go. Is he going to wait for that final climb? You imagine that that is the tactic here, unless he's out of gas and it's just about limiting any sort of damage.
Well, I think Amar Mournad now will stay on the front for as long as he can. Grifko's got about 10 or 11 seconds by my watch. I think Mournad's going to put them in the gutter a little bit to make sure that Dylan Teuns is protected. Try and reel this rider in, but Grifko still looking very, very strong. It flattens out for a minute, and then the last 800 metres of this climb all uphill at 5%.
Andre Grifko doesn't get too many wins in his career in professional cycling. Now we've got movement. Rein Tarame.
Tarame goes. We thought Katusha will play another hand, and it's actually Dylan Teuns, the leader of this race, closing down Tarame. It's something he doesn't actually need to do, of course, but if Tarame goes clear, he takes that valuable 10-second time bonus. His job is done.
Yep, as soon as Mournad it was who was finished, he was out of gas on the right-hand side. Now then, what's he doing to his own teammate Christophe here? He's hanging on well, is Christophe. There's a little bit of a gap ahead, though, and he might be caught out if he can't move up here. He's really fighting the European champion. Look at this.
God, he's hauling his big frame so well over this climb. Now, one of the camera is lingering on him, the home champion. The gap to Grifko now just a handful of seconds.
Andre Grifko, only 5 wins in his career as a professional cyclist, the last of those coming last year. Oh, and he's on his own.
Well, Dylan Teuns is leading the chase here. He's either full of confidence. That's a very interesting thing to do, especially in these sorts of conditions.
This man's still here. Look who's hanging on. Alexander Christophe is still there. This is a brilliant ride for him. Zico Whiten's on his wheel as well, but Dylan Teuns still has 1.2 kilometres to go, and he's doing all the work to chase down the man ahead of him. Now then, a couple more wheels opening up behind. This is where it gets very, very interesting. Still around 500 metres to go before it kicks up finally to the line with that 7% gradient there. So Grifko's brought back, the immediate danger is gone, but there's so many more opportunities to attack, and I think there's going to be a chance for Christophe to get back on.
One of the riders from Dimension Data has just gone clear as well. 1 kilometre to go. Great attack.
Superb attack. Imagine it's Ben O'Connor. It is Ben O'Connor who's got out on the attack. He's having a go. Being chased again by Dylan Teuns, once more doing his own work. And look who's still there behind. Alexander Christophe in this group.
Well, this is fascinating stuff. Remember, though, in just a couple of 100 metres' time, the road kicks up again to a gradient of 6% all the way to the line. Dylan Teuns has no teammates left, so he is the one that's brought him back.
Ben O'Connor, the 21-year-old Australian professional for the first time with Dimension Data. And here goes the leader. Dylan Teuns on the attack. He's taking a rider with him. Left hand takes it very well indeed. He's well into the final kilometre now. It's going to kick up again. And Dylan Teuns, with 6 wins in 3 weeks, wants the 10 bonus seconds, wants to increase his lead. Past all the encouragement for the Norwegian cyclist he goes. There's gaps opening up behind, and Dylan Teuns is riding well here. He does have competition, however, and can he keep it up towards the line? We wondered and asked that question on stage 1. He was there as August Jensen is chasing him behind. August Jensen it is from Team Corp, and Jensen's going to come around him. August Jensen has a real chance to take the win. August Jensen on the left-hand side. It's a win for Norway. We think it's a win for Norway, and it's August Jensen. Very, very, very close with Dylan Teuns alongside him. Gaps opening up behind. Christophe's going to come across the line now. 10 seconds. I think that's done for him in terms of the overall. But August Jensen, who started the day at 7 seconds, we think has taken 4 of those back on Dylan Teuns, who looks to have finished second on the stage. We'll wait to get a photo finish and a good look at it. But look at that. It's taken everything out of him. And August Jensen of Team Co-op out there to take the win. That's taken everything out of him. What a finish.
Well, here
he
it
goes
is.
On the left-hand side.
Last few minutes, it was Dylan Teuns, the leader of this race, went with about 400 metres to go, and it was only in the last few metres, great timing there by August Jensen, throws his bike, gets it, I think, by just about a rim's width.
Well, we'll get a better look here, and look where he comes from. 5th position. Michel Criner was up there as well. That's a very, very good result for Aqua Blue. You could see Elliot Lietard there too on the left-hand side. There's movement from the right from the rider from Cofidis. Teuns at this point looks like he's just about going to hang on to the win, but August Jensen comes around to take the biggest win of his career so far, and his first at professional level. Oh, well.
It was literally a throw of the bike. I think he did get...
He has done it. It's been confirmed.
Amazing. Sorry, Rob. The last 10 metres, he managed to just the last 2 or 3 pedal revs, and you can see what it means to this young man. 25 years of age, has been with Cobb Ulsterhouse since the start of his professional career back in 2013, and as you say, the biggest win by a long way in his career. And what a way to do it, what a place to do it, the Queen stage of his home race. Wonderful stuff.
Well, he's a man who's finished 5th at the Tour of Norway this year, just missed out on the podium overall at the Tour of the Fjords. Here, he's done it on the big stage at the Arctic Race of Norway. August Jensen beats Dylan Teuns and Dorian Goudon in 3rd place for Cofidis. Jensen up there, takes his 10 bonus seconds, and he's in play for the final overall victory tomorrow. He was 2nd on stage 1 to Teuns. He's overturned that result today, and he takes the win. 3 seconds he trails in 2nd place from Dylan Teuns, who keeps the leader's jersey. And well, we are in for one mighty finale tomorrow.
I mean, great riding here. Dylan Teuns, he did a lot of work in the last few kilometres, but he knew that he needs to get that 10-second time bonus. He shut a lot of gaps down. He shut down Ben O'Connor. He shut down Andre Grifko, and he nearly won the stage, but it wasn't to be. Perhaps did just a little bit too much. That doesn't take anything away from the ride of August Jensen, who has blown this race wide open.
August Jensen, the winner of stage 3 of the Arctic Race of Norway.
Kanskje det sånn at han har kjørt seg inn I landslagstroppen som skal være med I VM I september I Bergen. Ikke usannsynlig.
The 2nd Norwegian win in as many days. Gratulerer, well done. August Jensen cannot believe it. And that is a win that could well launch his career elsewhere. The company he's kept today, he's in tears.
Yeah, that's a big win. The timing, look at that. It was a rim's width. That last couple of revs, I was almost counting the revs in the last few meters in the slow motion replay there. Threw his bike, just about got it on the line. And now sits at only 3 seconds on the overall classification. 10 seconds for the win tomorrow, and a very difficult, challenging finishing circuit, plus those intermediate time bonuses spread throughout the day. Clearly going very well. Matching Dylan Teuns on a climb like that is going to be a very exciting